Xianyun is getting her very first rerun since her debut over a year ago, and since then the meta landscape has shifted greatly. So I went through over 500 of your most burning questions to put together this list to help you decide if you should get her and how to make the most out of her if you do. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Before we go over her team's tier list, I did want to just showcase her exploration, because to this day, I still use her on my exploration team, even in Natlan with Natlan characters. Just being able to traverse like this and being able to control where you go is just super, super valuable. And with her C2, or with her C1, it greatly enhances her ability to explore. So yeah, I always use her in tandem with Yelan or with the Natlan characters. She's great for going a distance, but she's also honestly not bad at climbing vertically. Like, she's not as good as Xianyun, but it's still not bad. And it's just easier to get over like little obstacles like this, or to quickly traverse like uneven terrain. So not everyone is going to get pull characters for exploration, but if you're into that sort of thing, getting her at Constellation 0 or at Constellation 1 could be potentially valuable. I'm not trying to convince you to do it, but it's something that I have found to be worthwhile for me. Before we get into any of the questions, I want to go over a tier list for how much different characters need Xianyun. First, we'll go over it at C0, and then I'll consider Xianyun C2, and we'll talk about how that changes everyone's position. So obviously, Xianyun needs Xianyun. If you want to play Xianyun, you got to get her. So make sure to get yourself a Xianyun if you like her character. Nilou, I feel absolutely needs Xianyun. I have tried to do his melt sort of stuff without it. Maybe you could get away with, I don't know, Sea Lily constellations or something, but I feel Nilou just needs Xianyun to be good, so I'm going to put him in needs. Xiao, I'm highly recommended. He can technically get away without Xianyun and just be using Bennett, considering Xianyun C0, but it's way more comfy, way easier to play, way more recommended. So I highly recommend Xianyun for Xiao wanters, but it's not need like Farzan C6 is a need, for example. Hu Tao, I would call it a good option. I prefer, if you're going to spend those primos, I'd prefer going for Xianyun. If you enjoy the play style of Hu Tao at Constellation 1, then I recommend that. She gets better AoE with Xianyun, but she's still not like an AoE character. It's like solid AoE, but it's not like so good in AoE that she becomes like an AoE god that you have to get Xianyun for your AoE Hu Tao team. I still recommend doubling down on Hu Tao things, unless you don't enjoy the dash cancel playstyle, in which case the jump cancel is really, really fun. Alternatively, maybe you really want to use Xianyun on the other side of the abyss, and so you want to have Xianyun as an option for your Hu Tao, in which case it's pretty cool. Also, maybe you just want a new type of playstyle for Hu Tao. So yeah, Xianyun's like a good option, I would say. I've never disappointed using the team, but I feel like the Farina Yelan Xianyun is better, especially if you consider potentially getting C1 Hu Tao. And yes, there is the new Plunge set, but from what I've seen, that doesn't change anything here. For Navia, I would have put her in a good option previously, but I really, really like the Navia Moika dual DPS that we have going on right now. So at Constellation 0, Xianyun, I would put Navia in worse but can use. I'm going to put worse but good, because it is good. I do like it. I do get very consistent good results from it. But if you're going to pull stuff for your Navia, I really, really like the Navia Moika Xianyun and Bennett team. For Gaming, I'm going to put it in a good option. I know this might be surprising, considering that Gaming is like Plunge character and came out with Xianyun, and you'd expect Gaming to be, in either highly recommended or needs, but I find that I get very, very similar results with Xianyun than I do with Sucrose, that I do with Xianyun. And in AoE, I find Xianyun was slightly better, and in single target, my Xianyun did do slightly better than the others. So it sort of just depends. It does change if you consider Xianyun C2, but at Constellation 0, it's like a good option. And getting a 5-star for a good option, since he can already plunge, it's not opening up a new playstyle like it is with Hu Tao. Who can be Varessa? It seems like Varessa is not on this list. All right, this is Varessa. I'm going to put it in worse but good. Chevreuse, Moika, Yansan is just really, really cracked. So if you can swing getting Constellation 6 Chevreuse in particular, it's going to be worse. If you don't have Constellation 6, then Xianyun is highly recommended. So it really just depends on if you have Constellation 6 Chevreuse or Xianyun. The other nice thing about the Chevreuse teams is that it doesn't need Farina. So if you're using Xianyun, basically all of these teams, except for Gaming, well, okay, not all of these teams. Half these teams want Farina, but with Veressa, her not using Xianyun means she's not using Farina, which is freeing up Farina potentially for your other side if that's valuable for you. So that's basically the recommendations for that. If you want to play other characters as Plunge, I don't know, using Raiden, you're not doing plunges, but just using her in place of Xianyun, it's kind of like just use Jean with Raiden, because it's not really worth a 5-star pull, I don't think. Sure, she gets to pass Thrilling Tales, but it's not enough for me to really recommend her, especially if you have the attack speed constellation for Jean. Yeah, for Veressa, since Chevreuse is on the banner, it's like just keep going and just commit to getting Chevreuse C6. Actually, I had Noelle here, but then I remembered that Xianyun exists, so get out of here, Noelle. The other thing to consider is if you want to make like DPS random Claymore character good, then you kind of need them, like DPS Xianyun, DPS Dea. Unless you have high constellation Dea, you're best off using Xianyun, even though it's a little worse than Diluc, still pretty good. And also DPS Bennett, if for some reason you want to play DPS Bennett, then you kind of need Xianyun to make it really good. So, and it is quite good, it is very good. So yeah, this is the Constellation 0 Xianyun, and then if you have C2 Xianyun, so now we're considering C2, we'll change it to best in slot, and now it's like best in slot for everyone. I don't know about Hu Tao, because Hu Tao does a bunch of damage with other stuff. So like if you consider some constellations, if they were to be Xianyun constellations, I don't think that you'd want to put them on, like if you were to consider constellations for a Hu Tao team, I'd think Farina would be better, like Hu Tao C1, then Farina C1, maybe Xianyun C2 would be better than Xianyun constellations, kind of similar with Navia, just go for like Moika constellations kind of thing, or Xianyun constellations. So if you're doing C2 Xianyun, then all the Plunge characters just she becomes just best in slot for all the Plunge characters basically, and it's a huge upgrade. So yeah, this is C2, and then R1 makes it even better. So it's about if you have C2 R1, it's about a 50% increase for someone like Xiao, and similar for the others. If you're seeing any crazy showcases from any of these characters, you can pretty much assume C2 Xianyun. Now to the questions. If you want to skip ahead to teams or builds, I'll have the timestamps linked below. But for meta and value, do you think her pull value is decreasing? More and more units do not need Plunge at all for their damage and go against it sometimes. Do you think as we keep getting new 5-star DPS which don't need plunges, will her pull value decrease? Or do you think it's just a bit of a dry spot for plunges? They're not just going to release a ton of Plunge characters all the time. Plunge will never be super common. That's why she enables plunges, so that you can use anyone as a plunge. Basically, I think she'll stay as a strong side grade to Plunge characters for a while anyways, and at C2 she'll probably remain a meta option for a while, like a couple years or something. That's kind of what I see. It's sort of more of what we've seen over this last year. I expect us to see more of the same, maybe a Plunge character every year or so at the most, in my opinion. So yeah. Do you think they'll add more Plunge main DPS in the future that won't rely on her support at all, making her less valuable? It's sort of already the case, right? Veressa and Gaming already don't rely on her, and Zhao obviously worked before she existed, so her support is basically already a side grade for most characters. How much better is she than Jean? She enables Plunge teams while Jean does not, but they both heal and apply VV. It is still worth pulling if you have a strong Jean. If you're using Xianyun for non-plunge things, then you might as well just use Jean. The upgrade is nowhere near worth it if there is an upgrade at all. Right now, does she have more teams with Farina or Citlali? Kind of want to make sure make a Zhongli vape plunge, but maybe Melt is better. Melt will definitely be better if you can swing it. Xiao uses Farina, so the team is Xiao, Farazan, Farina, Xianyun. Diluc uses Citlali, so Bennett, Citlali, Xianyun. Gaming uses Citlali, same teams as Diluc, except Gaming doesn't need Xianyun. Hu Tao uses Farina, Navia uses Farina, and any pyro infused character, especially a Claymore, will want to use Citlali. I actually haven't tried Bennett with Citlali. I only used him when it was Farina. How good is she for a general non-plunge centric account? I wouldn't recommend it. Plenty of more valuable characters. How does Xianyun buff Veressa? Well, she gives a crit rate buff, a plunge bonus buff, and has VV. Yeah. Her best C0 / free-to-play teams with the latest characters. At least she's, so let's say you have C6 Gaming, then you can use C0 Xianyun, C0 Bennett, or C1 Bennett, or whatever constellation of Bennett, as long as it's C1 or above, and C0 Citlali. So that's fairly free to play, if you assuming you have C6 Gaming, and then if you have Diluc, then that's another one. I feel like all of her teams work well at C0 and then work even better if you have constellations, whether they be her own constellations or Farina constellations, etc. Is she worth it in the long run? I wouldn't pull her for future Plunge characters. As we're seeing with Veressa and with Gaming, most characters will have other options that aren't Xianyun. I wouldn't say Xianyun is meta relevant. Like, is it not meta relevant? Yeah, she isn't meta relevant before C2. Is it ever worth it to use Jean over her? I never use Jean because Xianyun just seems better. Yeah, Jean doesn't right now have any like meta uses, but with her attack speed constellation, she can be a Xianyun replacement for Raiden, double Hydro. All right, wishing help. Should I pull Cloud Retainer and play Plunge Navia or get Xianyun instead? I would definitely prioritize Xianyun. Looking to get Cloud Retainer for my Xiao team. I don't have any 5-star weapon for Xiao yet. I have C6 Farzan for C0. I have enough wishes to guarantee Z0, R1, or C1, R0. I know C2 is very valuable, but I don't have a good weapon for her. I only have Thrilling Tales. Would you wish for, considering we have no idea when she may rerun, probably 1 year plus? I think in the long run, if you really want to main Xiao, getting Cloud Retainer, C2, and her weapon is going to be the best option. Her weapon is something like a 6% increase, according to my calcs I saw from my friend Flip. Links are in the description for his channel. And her C2 is about a 30% increase, but together they are a 50% increase. So they kind of scale together. So I think you can just go for either one, either her C1 for now and work towards her C2 and R1, or you can get her R1 now and work towards her C2 later on. The nice thing about getting her weapon is its immediate damage increase right now. The nice thing about getting her C1 is it's an extra bit of battery for Xiao and also extra exploration. So it's sort of up to you and working towards making Xiao actually feel really, really good, getting her C2 and R1. I have C2, C0 Xianyun, don't struggle with your ER, not a huge fan of Veressa, but if the 4 stars are interesting, I need C6 Farzan. Oof. No C6, no Farzan there. Which banner should I pull on? C1 Xianyun is interesting for exploration and that's it. C1 R1 Hu Tao main. Should I go for C2 Xianyun or wait for Xianyun? Definitely wait for Xianyun, unless you just want the different playstyle. I want to make a team for Xiao, but is she worth pulling over Xianyun for my whole account? I do have Farina and I'm free to play. It depends on who else you have. In general, Xianyun's a lot better, but for Xiao, he can't use Xianyun, so totally up to you if you want to like really strengthen your Xiao team or go for Xianyun stuff for other characters. It's totally up to you. Xianyun good with Noelle? Nah, wait, no, I'll get Xianyun. I have both Gaming and Mulanni. I don't have Xianyun or Xianyun. I'm struggling to clear, and I would like to know which support device I get. Definitely Xianyun. Gaming can use Xianyun or Sucrose or even Kazuha, and Mulanni really, really wants Xianyun. So definitely get Xianyun and just use Sucrose on Gaming. You can just use C0 Sucrose, Sacrificial Fragments, good to go. Pretty much the same as C0 Xianyun. I have Xiao, and I do not, and I'd also get Citlali if you don't have Citlali yet. I have Xiao. I was considering pulling for down the road, but is it worth it? Well, sure, it'll be probably sooner or is already. If you really want to main Xiao, then you should get Xianyun. If I need a copy of Yansan, is it worth wishing on Xianyun? If my best team option for her is Navia Plunge, depends on your other Navia teams. If it's worth it for the fun for you, then great. But for meta, I wouldn't really bother. Don't wish for 4 stars if you don't want the 5 star. If I need an Electro DPS, but I also love playing Gaming, is it really worth it to go for Xianyun? If no, then I might go for Veressa. Veressa, Xianyun, Farina, Yansan. How is this team? Based on the banner, I would go for the Veressa banner and use Veressa, Yansan, Chevreuse, and Bennett or Shangling or Moika, and then you can either make a Gaming team with Citlali, Bennett, Sucrose, or whatever, or you can use Xianyun and Farina for a different team. So, but you don't need an Electro DPS. So just let's get that out of the way right there. But if you like playing Veressa, then you can go for the Veressa banner. If I'm going to pull for Veressa, I'm planning on putting Xianyun and hopefully Yansan on the team. I don't have Farina. I don't have much time to grind as a free-to-play. What do you recommend I put in the 4th slot? I don't know how good Xianyun's going to be on that team without Farina. I would just go for the Chevreuse stuff since we know Chevreuse is on the banner now. Having a fairly new account with Arlecchino, Farina, Zhongli, Diluc, Keqing. Pull Xianyun for Diluc team or save for Xianyun. I wouldn't go for Diluc Farina. I'd go for Diluc Mel. If you're looking for meta stuff, I would recommend saving for Xianyun because Xianyun Farina with a different team will help you more in the long run. I don't think Xianyun will really get you closer to a 36 star unless you really want to play Diluc. If you really want to play Diluc in the future, then definitely go for that. Pulling her for Navia, Chiori, Shenhe Farina team. Is that a reasonable team at all C0? Should I go for cons? If you really want to play Chiori, I do recommend C1, especially if you're playing it on this Navia team. I do like this team. It's not, I don't like it as much as the Mavia one, as I said. Navia one, no, Mavia, Mawika plus Navia. Yeah. But it is still a good team. And you could also consider Farina cons. So you consider Chiori C1 and Farina C1. And that will probably make this team, those two together will probably make this team feel like really, really good. That would take it from being a good option to like, that would take it up for sure. I want to wish for Yansan. So if I want to wish on a banner, shall I wish for C1 or Xianyun C1 or Varesa? Yeah, there's no Farzan. Rip. It's a rip. I don't know what you should do. Maybe wait for Yansan to be on Cloran's rerun. I don't know, man. This is rough. Wait for me to at least test Yansan to see how good she is with Cloran. So let's wait. Farina, Fischl, Shengling is my second team. Barbara used for healing. Do you think I should pull Xianyun? I would wait for Xianyun. She is coming next patch. You'll get a lot more mileage out of that. That'll be a lot better for your teams than getting Xianyun if you're looking for meta. But if you really like Xianyun, then you should definitely go for it. Farina C2 or Xianyun C1 for Xiao team. I would honestly go for Xianyun, because although the C1 doesn't do that much, it's a step towards C2, and C2 is huge for Xiao. So if you really, really want to master Xiao, then go all in to try and get Xianyun C2, eventually R1. How is she in a Novelette team being a healer and be able to stack a ton of fanfare? Novelette fully stacks fanfare by himself, even without a healer. So you do not need a healer to stack fanfare. She will just be a mediocre VV user on a Novelette team. So that's why I recommend like someone like Lanyan on this team instead of basically anyone else, or obviously Kazuha for the damage bonus. And is it bad to go for Xianyun over Xianyun? Meta-wise, yes, because that would really help your Novelette team. But for fun-wise, like you said, it's a new archetype, and then you can use Diluc. So totally up to you whether you want, more meta or you want the fun to use Diluc. Is Xianyun enough of an upgrade over Bennett/Jean for C0 Hu Tao? If you plan on keeping your Hu Tao C0, I would say that it is enough of an upgrade over Bennett or Jean to be worth it. Yeah. But C2 Yansan is a side grade over Xianyun for Mawika, which would let me use Xianyun with Hu Tao. So here's the key. Here's the kicker. You don't need Yansan to be a side grade to Xianyun. You can use Diona C6, potentially Chongyun, although I haven't quite tested it yet. I'll be testing it soon. Or Sucrose or Kazuha, and those will also be pretty close to a side grade for Xianyun for Mawika team. So you don't need to wish for anyone else. Right now, I would swap Xianyun over to your Hu Tao team and use someone else, whether it be Sucrose or Diona or someone on your Mawika team. And don't even bother wishing for Yansan. Don't bother wishing for Xianyun. Use what you have, save your primos for someone you really want. Someone who mains traditional Diluc, double crowd, Dragon Strike, respect. Would you say that the C2R1 vertical investment is worth it to maximize his plunge damage? Yeah. Yep. If you've seen those clears, it is nuts. Assuming you also get Silali. I want Gaming, Yansan, and Farazan copies. Well, sorry about Farazan. But most importantly, want to buff my Diluc. Yeah, I would, if you really want to buff your Diluc, I would definitely go for Silali and the Silali Xianyun, especially Xianyun C2. That's going to be really good. Is she worth it over Xianyun? Just make sure you can do the plunges on your phone, because you said you play on your phone, and plunge can be pretty tricky on the phone. So if you're finding the Abyss tough, even though your builds are good, I suggest really mashy characters. So like going for Novelette, maybe even Novelette C1, maybe C1 Farina, Novelette, Xianyun, and then Kazuha team, something like that, or maybe Chaska stuff. Mawika should be pretty easy on mobile. I do respect getting new playstyles for more fun, but just be careful with Plunge, because some people don't like Plunge on mobile. I really only plan on using Xianyun for 2 teams, Xiao and Plunge Diluc. Do I absolutely need her weapon? No, you don't need her weapon, but those 2 teams are pretty serious teams. But if you decide to invest more, yeah, the C2 is better than the weapon. I really love Xianyun. She's my top 5 favorite characters. Worth pulling for her if I don't have Plunge characters like Xiao, Varesa, Navia, Hu Tao, Diluc, etc. As long as, top 5 favorite characters, I would definitely get her. She's awesome in exploration, so pretty much worth it right there if you already like her. I have C0R1. Is it worth going for C2? I mostly use her with Farina and a Claymore. Depends what worth is. Like, it's 2 more 5-star wishes going towards her. In terms of her upgrade power relative to other things, other constellations that would give you upgrade power, it is worth it. Like, it's one of the better upgrade constellations. Is it worth it versus you getting new characters? Only you can know. Is it better to pull for Xianyun even maybe to C2 to make Xiao complete, or just go for Veressa. I don't actually know. I imagine that both will... I would just really go for whoever you find more fun to play and which overall package you like better. Xiao with a C2 Shenhyun, or Veressa with lots of copies on Chevreuse and Yansan. Both of those will do very, very well. I don't know exactly which one would be stronger. It depends on how many constellations you end up getting on Veressa. If you end up getting Veressa C2, then that probably is stronger. But if you don't, then maybe it's comparable, like Xiao with Shenhyun C2. But I would really just go for who you like better and who's more the total package of character that you like better, including playstyle, etc. I'm on 74 pity. Is Yansan worth getting? Shenhyun, if there's a chance I won't even get the 4-star I want? No, 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 no. No, no, no. I want Yansan copies. Should I go for Shenhyun or Veressa? Don't use Diluc. Want Chevreuse C6. Who are you using Chevreuse with? Arlecchino, maybe? I think you can go for either Shenhyun or Veressa. You could use Shenhyun with Navia, but you could use Veressa with Chevreuse Yansan. I feel like Veressa will be stronger. Be the stronger pull, probably, but you can go for whoever. Does Shenyun's pull value go up if I don't want to use Chevreuse to take away from my Cloran team? Yeah, definitely. I'm going to try and C6 Yansan after getting C0 Veressa and Shenhyun. Who should use the rest of my pulls? Veressa or Shenhyun? Go for Shenhyun. Maybe you get C2. And if not, at least you have great exploration with C1. I feel like Xiao has fallen off the meta. I've benched him for a while. You only have C2 Farazan, so that's a real big problem. And Shenyun's not with Farazan. So if you don't love Xiao, then you can just drop Xiao. And I wouldn't save for Xianyun for Moika. I think it's better to use Sucrose or Diona or maybe Chongyun. Again, I haven't tested it yet, but Xianyun is definitely good with a lot of characters. So I would definitely, unless you really, really love Xiao, they're kind of doing Xiao mains dirty. So I definitely wouldn't like aim for Xiao unless you really, really love him. How good is Diluc Silali Melt Plunge with Shenhyun? It's only crazy with Shenhyun C2. It's not crazy without it. It's kind of annoying. Like, it's good, but it's not, like, crazy. I have Novelet, Nahida, Kazuha, Silali. I'm planning to pull for Moika or Skirk. Yeah, I would just save for Moika or Skirk based on what I'm seeing here. All right, for Shenhyun builds. First of all, Artifact. You want to go for Song of Days Past for most teams. Let's go through it. For Xiao, Song of Days Past. For Diluc, you can go with VV. For Gaming, VV. For Veressa, VV. Yeah. For Hu Tao, VV. For Navia, Song of Days Past. But if you don't want to bother trying to swirl, then you can still go for Song of Days Past, even on the Gaming and Diluc things, and it's still fine. How much ER do you need? An absolute metric ton. 200 plus if she's solo Animo. I have 238, and I wouldn't really want to go below that. I'm using an ER Sans, and I have ER on most of my substats, and I'm using the Oathsworn Eye, which is giving her a bunch of ER. Oh, maybe I'm getting the buff from the Oathsworn Eye. That I must be, right? Surely. Yeah. So you want around 200 ER before Oathsworn Eye for solo Animo, if you have Oathsworn Eye. If you don't have Oathsworn Eye, probably around 220, 230 for solo Animo. She's an energy hungry character. If you have her signature, it's a bit lower. If you're using Fab, obviously that's lower as well. For artifact stats, you're looking for attack percent, ER, and crit if you're using Favonius Codex, which I imagine a lot of people will be. If you can get enough crit substats from your pieces, then great. But if not, you'll need to use a crit rate hat. Otherwise, you'll want to use an attack hat. Stats are going to be ER, attack. If you have enough ER, like with Favonius Codex, maybe you can get away with an attack Sans. And if you have Favonius Codex, then you'll want to use a crit rate hat most of the time, unless you have really godly crit rate substats. For her weapons, this is Keqing mains. They're linked down below, but Crane's Echoing Call is the best. Favonius Codex they're recommending for most teams if you need the energy that it provides. And if you have lots of energy, then Oathsworn Eye. And if you have Xiao and C6 Farazan, because then they're providing lots of animal energy, then you can use Memory of Dust, Flowing Purity, Thrilling Tales. I don't see Skyward Atlas on here. Maybe they've calculated that Skyward Atlas is somehow worse than Flowing Purity. Oh, no. There it is. Memory of Dust, Skyward Atlas, and Cash Flow Supervision are all about equal if you're using her on a Xiao team. And they're also saying for Xiao, Thrilling Tales performs about on par with Oathsworn Eye or Flowing Purity, and if Xiao is on Vermilion Hereafter, Thrilling Tales is worse because the attack isn't as valuable for Xiao. A lot of people were also asking about the new Plunge set. Until I see more favorable calcs, for now I'm going to recommend not farming the new Plunge set for anyone, basically. It's not looking like an upgrade over current options for basically anyone, considering it also has weird requirements to keep proper uptime. So not for Hu Tao, not for Diluc, not for Gaming, not even for Xiao, like maybe for Xiao under certain specific circumstances, but generally no. Not for, who else was there? Not for Veressa. I mean, for Veressa, it's like about equal with Codex. So if you already have Codex, then why bother? The only time I'd recommend doing the new Plunge set actually is if you're going to be getting Skirk, in which case you'll be getting the new Plunge set anyways, and then you'll be able to use it on Veressa or whoever else it ends up being a side grade on. But for now, it seems like it's generally worse for most of the Plunge characters than the other options that they would have had. Can VV work off-field for her? Not for her, not for no one. How much is Song of Days Past better or worse than VV on Xianyun? Is it team dependent? Yeah, it's team dependent. I feel like I barely swirl Pyro on my Hu Tao Plunge teams, but I can always swirl Pyro when I'm playing Gaming. Yes, exactly. But fortunately, even swirling Hydro, since Farina and Yelan do a lot of damage, it is still worth it to do VV on Hu Tao Plunge teams, even though you're not swirling for Hu Tao. Is medium investment in level and talents going to be enough for her? Oh yeah, talents. You can not really invest much in her skill and invest nothing into a normal attack unless you're playing DPS Xianyun. And you do want to level up her burst to fairly high damage. You don't have to crown it, but at least level 9, because that's where her damage bonus comes from. So definitely level her burst. How much crit should I target for Fav? I guess you kind of want to go for 50 crit rate or above, but if you're feeling special, you could go for a bit less. Can she run 2-piece attack instead of ER to make her benchmarks easier? Nah, I would just go for Song of Days Past or VV. It's definitely worth actually going for her actual set. I don't think the benchmarks are that crazy difficult. With Favonius, you're probably going to go attack, crit rate. I wouldn't aim for like a specific amount of attack. It's just as much attack as you can get. And you always want probably around 200 ER, and crit rate hat with a few subs should be fine. Does Shenhe C1 actually help with the team's ER requirements? I mean, it does a little bit. It creates some more particles. Not as much for future rotations, but it still does. Noblesse, 2-piece attack. I mean, you can go Noblesse if you already have a Noblesse done, but just go for Song of Days Past or VV most of the time. Now on to teams. We already did our teams tier list, so you can check out the beginning of the video if you skipped ahead. How good is she for... This was the performance of the 3 Navia teams that I tested, so... But keep in mind, Chiori was C1, so... It kind of performed kind of on par with the Bennett one. Yeah. If you have Farina C1, this is probably better. But yeah, it does have better AoE here. But yeah, I like the Moika one so much more. It's just so much more synergistic. I have Xiao, but I have good teams, and I don't think much for playing for Shen. Is she worth it for Xiao, or can I wait for Skirk? If you're happy with your Xiao teams, then you can wait for Skirk. She's not like a huge boost for Xiao unless you get her C2. She's definitely much easier to play or nicer to play than with Bennett, but if you're happy with the Bennett version, then great. Is Shenhe the best teammate for Gaming, or is Citlali surpassed her? You use Citlali on the Gaming teams. I would definitely say that Gaming Citlali is more important. If you look here, my Gaming Shalonen and my Gaming Sucrose, 114, 112. And then Gaming with Xianyun is at 113. So they're all like exactly the same for me when I'm testing them. They all feel pretty much the same. And then I did feel like Shalonen was a bit better for AoE. I'm using Hu Tao, Farina C1, C2, Yelan, Shalonen. If I replace Shalonen by Xianyun here, how does the team perform? Do you think she's worth it to get free Shalonen for other teams? If your other teams are really needing Shalonen, then it could be worth it. Like, this team will still do very, very well with Xianyun, considering your Hu Tao is C0. Not as good, but still very, very good. So if you really want Shalonen for the other side, then you definitely can consider that. What's her best team? I like Xianyun, but I have no idea what her best in slot team is. It's probably Gaming. Who of these is... Yeah, it's probably Gaming. Maybe Veressa. It changes if you consider constellations. Maybe it's Veressa. I don't know. We'll see. It's either Gaming or Veressa. We'll see how strong Veressa is. Do you think turning every Claymore Sword Polearm character into Melt DPS by pairing them with the Xianyun, C6 Bennett and Citlali be better than their normal playstyle? I think it has to be Claymore because I think Sword... Well, I think Sword and Polearm, I think they apply too much pyro to melt everything. But for the Claymores, definitely it's better than their other playstyle. Not other characters like Navia, but Eula for sure, and like a bunch of other Claymores. What is Plunge Navia's best team with C2 Xianyun? Yeah, it would be C1 Chiori, C1 Farina. That's perfect. That's going to be a great team. Really, really good. Is it worth building for my C0 Hu Tao Farina team if I leveled up Jean already? Or should I stick with it until I can get Hu Tao C1? I want to try physical VENTI. Would Xianyun make it better? You know what? Just for you, I tried physical yoimiya, and this is what I got. So we can watch physical yoimiya right here. We're using yoimiya on a physical goblet. And so what are we getting here? 20k. So we got 81k plunge. So we're using Farina, Xianyun, Bennett for a hyper carry physical yoimiya. We're getting 80k plunges. What was that? Wait, was that 90k? Is that 100k or was it 10k? We did get 100k plunge. So, I mean, it's definitely physical Venti's best team. Is it good enough to clear the Spiral Abyss? So we're getting 70k, 69k, 70k on Burb. No, on, yeah, chicken burb. So a bit low on ER, 74k, 70k, 66k. Like, it's not good, and we're like really struggling with ER, but it's not like so completely awful that that you can't use it at all. Like you're getting pretty high plunges. What did we total clear it in? So we started the chamber at exactly 8 minutes. Yeah, no, 8:04, and we finished at 6:58. So it cleared in under a minute, or in a minute 6. So that's not like that bad. So that's kind of funny. So like, is it really bad? Yeah, but like not really actually really bad. It's just like a waste of like good characters. If you have C1 Farina, if you have Shenhe C2, then this could actually be like not painful to play. Like it could actually be decently okay. Let's skip ahead one more time to when I start plunging again, because that's just really funny that it's actually doing like some amounts of damage. I like that. Thanks for asking that question. Very silly. But that's why you subscribe to Jello Impact, because we try physical yoimiya on Jello Impact. I don't understand the Xiao Shenhyun team mechanic. Shenhyun buffs plunges. Zhao plunges. What's our best team with Xianyun? I'm personally using them with Farina and Shenhe, but I want to use the best possible team. Something with Melt and not having C6 Bennett. I think if you don't have C6 Bennett, you can melt Xianyun's hits. Nowadays, though, it probably is better to have C6 Bennett, and then you can use Xianyun. Xianyun will provide some extra cryo application, reduce cooldowns, and do like the Diluc melt plunge thing with Xianyun. So Xianyun, Bennett, Shenhyun, Xianyun. That's going to be the best possible team now. Sorry, another team where Shenhe dies. Apologies. I should try my Shenhe plunge again. DPS Kazuha is Shenhyun C0, Farina C0, and C6 been a good team, possibly best team? Yeah, I think so. I think that I think Farina is going to be better than Xianyun because it should be easier to keep up the Hydro Aura. You can check out my original Shenhyun video. I played this team with Kazuha. I liked it. I don't know if it holds up anymore, but I liked it at the time. You might need a bit of constellations on either Farina or Shenhyun for it to really hold up now, but I liked it. Is Shenhyun the weakest of the 3 in Xiao's meta comp? Who's the most replaceable? Also, what kind of character would we need to release to buff that team? Then it's kind of tough because, well, Faruzan's definitely not replaceable. Farina and Shenhyun are very good. They go together. If for Shenhyun to be replaced, you'd need a healer. Xiao just really wants it. I hate to be the Shenhyun C2 salesman, but for Xiao, he really just wants Shenhyun C2 R1. That's kind of what Hoyo just decided to do. They said, hey, if you really want to make your Xiao feel like a super modern, really strong DPS, meta DPS, then you go for a Shenhyun C2 R1. They're like, we know Xiaomans are dedicated, so they're gonna go for it. So that's what they did. A potential Natlan support, like if Shenhyun was a Natlan character, then she could hold the scroll set and that would, so if we had an Animo healer that could hold the scroll set, that could be a bigger buff than Shenhyun, but they would also need to do some other kind of buffing, I think, because Xiao already gets a lot of damage bonus. Since there's a decent Shenhyun Hu Tao team, I've wondered if you could do some fun stuff with Shenhyun with an Arlecchino. How do they compare? The thing is, Hu Tao is better because she can do the charge attack and then do her jump cancel and then plunge. So she kind of has like a bit of built-in synergy, whereas Arlecchino, when you charge attack, it doesn't do damage. And so like, yeah, so it's not like as good. It's still fine, but it's not ideal. I want to pull forward, but I'm afraid of losing DPS, leaving Shalon behind. Since your Hu Tao is C1, I feel like you will lose a bunch of DPS, I'm sorry to say. I wouldn't plan on getting Shenhyun for Plunge Hu Tao with the new set. Considering I already have a very solid Crimson Witch set, how worth it do you think these investments are in terms of DPS loss increase? I'm going to focus on Skirk set once 5.5 is out, so I want a reason to use the other set. I've seen some calculations that say the new set is better for Hu Tao and some that saying it's worse. I think that you'll just have to do some more research and wait and see. I don't have a definitive answer for you yet. I heard the new Plunge artifact set will be 18 to 10% better on Diluc than Marchese with Farina. I don't know about Farina. I think I'm all on board with Citlali nowadays, but if you really want to buff Diluc, then you should be getting Xianyun, and we'll see in the coming weeks, hopefully, how the Plunge set really stacks up against other options for Diluc. How essential are her C2 and R1 to making Dark Knight Hero do big numbers? For YouTube showcase numbers, you definitely need her C2, R1. To just clear the Abyss, you can get by with just C0, but it is like a bit finicky. Is Yansan an upgrade for Raiden's premium Plunge taser team with Xianyun? Maybe. I will be trying it. Yaimiko Plunge or Lynette Plunge? Yeah. It was like doable back in the day, but I feel like the DPS thresholds are a bit too high now for it to feel good. For Yaimiko, Lynette Plunge probably still fine. Definitely skip Warmuika for your Naviev team for sure. Is she ever worth it without Farina? Yeah, the Citlali teams for sure. Main DPS Xianyun, finally someone asks. It is viable. It's more viable with more constellations, but at release, I found it not that far off from Xiao. You buff her with Farina, Bennett, and Faruzan, and it was like solid. Swirl DPS, no. It's not as good as Xiao, obviously, but it's like solid. If you really like Xianyun, I would recommend playing her as a DPS, like if that sounds fun to you, especially getting C2R1, you have a couple of her special plunge attacks. I would go for it. It will be, especially at C2R1, it will definitely be good enough to consistently 36 star the Abyss and have a lot of fun doing it and be relatively comparable, assuming you're using Farina, Bennett, Faruzan. Does she benefit DPS Shallonen at all? Yeah, if you want to use DPS Shallonen, Plunge is definitely the way. It's like kind of cope, but not bad. In AoE situations, is Bennett actually better than Xianyun for Xiao? Yeah. But he's also way more cringe to play, so I'd still kind of prefer Xianyun even at C0. Team comps without Farina or Shallonen? No problem. Any of the Citlali ones. Bennett, Citlali, Xianyun for Gaming, for example. Other. Do you use the burst before Bennett's burst or inside Bennett's burst? I would use it before. I like Xianyun. Would it be worth dipping into my Skirk savings and risk getting Xianyun C1 to try and snipe a copy of Yansan? Is C1 Xianyun still valuable with exploration power creep? Yes to the second one and no for the first one. I would not try and snipe a copy of Yansan. But do what you want, right? If I loved a character, I would too, but I'm going to recommend not to. 1 in 38 chance. 1 in 38 chance to get Yansan. Expect to take 4 10 pulls to get 1 copy of Yansan. So keep that in mind. Is Veresa's weapon worth pulling as a stat stick for Risley? Or just wait for one to rerun? Definitely wait for... Isn't he on banner right now? Bro, he's on banner right now. I'm assuming you're out of pulls. But definitely wait for a Wanderer rerun. Don't get Xianyun's weapon for Risley. Do plunging attacks enabled by Xianyun count towards Yansa's movement thingy? Yeah. Your preferred Xianyun Clorand exploration team? Ooh. I think I was using something like this for a while. And then you can do Yansan instead of Fischl because he also does more movement. So he's like a exploration character. So something like this, I think. What can disappointed Veresa enthusiasts do with Xianyun's weapon? You can use it. It's about on par with average Widsith, which is pretty good. So use it. Whew, that was a lot of work. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it. And if you don't want it, that's totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.